Who will be the 100 prospects drafted in the top 100? We're delivering our best guess today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this?
Nothing.
It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting
Nothing's
Podcast.
better than this.
We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day. And a big welcome to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Happy Predictive Top 100 Day to you, Joseph.
I'm excited, man.
We had a pretty good gaggle of folks that tuned in on YouTube last night to sit down and hang out with us. I think we went about 50 people wire to wire.
A gaggle's worth of people.
A gaggle's worth of people. I have a gaggle's worth of community people buzzing by. They sniped my podcast window this morning. They were weed whacking in the common area across the street. So I have gaggle's worth of. If you just hear motors and whirring and zzz across the street, just know they're still out there. I still see them. So
you chose to live across the street from a common area, man. This is what could happen.
Right. I didn't. These are the things you don't take into account. But that's fine. We did take into account our best guess on projecting who the top 100 prospects that are going to hear their name called in the top 100 are going to be.
Right. So every year, the Huddle Report puts together some really fun contests, and we are participating. And really, the next couple of days here on the podcast are going to be us sharing our work. And so one of the contests that they have is the Predictive Top 100. Your job is to guess which 100 players go in the top 100 picks. Nothing about this matters in terms of order. It's just, can you get those players right? And on a yearly basis, we get somewhere in the 80s, right? That's typically been mid-80s. That's been our typical
90s,
finish.
90's a unicorn score that if you get a 90, you're going to win.
So, look, we're going for a 90 this year.
We're shooting for 90.
And so last night on the YouTube channel, we went through and we kind of set the framework for this and came up with who we thought it would be. We've had the opportunity to sleep on it. We've made some adjustments. There's some things that are a little bit different.
We made some phone calls and some text messages as well.
We did some things.
Asking
some things,
people. Yeah.
Some things happened. If you were here last night and some things are a little bit different, you can be assured there's a reason for it.
There's a reason.
And so we are going to share today with you which players at each position we think are going to be drafted in the top 100. Completely predictive. There's going to be a lot of players we're going to talk about right now that Kyle and I would not draft in the top 100.
Correct.
But that's okay.
But there's a reason why they're there.
There's a reason why they're there.
So I have a nifty little table that I'm going to pull up on the stream. Should be able to see it right between Joe's head and my head on the stream. And we have quarterbacks up right now, Joe, and there's 5. We have 5 predictive top 100 quarterbacks. And all of the players on here are listed alphabetically by first name. So again, the order does not matter.
Right.
Don't freak out about the order. Don't freak out that Anthony Richardson's the first quarterback on this list. Right? We just think he's going in the top 100. Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Hendon Hooker, and Will Levis are the 5 predictive quarterbacks that we have going in the top 100, which, Joe, effectively means we don't think there's going to be a day 2 quarterback this year.
Well, probably, right? That's assuming Hendon Hooker gets in there in this first-round conversation.
Correct.
Feels like there's a lot of momentum for that to happen.
I can't believe it.
So those are all top 100 picks. They're probably all first-round picks and nothing beyond that.
Any thoughts on quarterbacks that were not on the list that you had a hard time leaving off before we move on? Because I guess that's kind of how we're going to present the names that are on.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about if there's a name that we struggle with, and then any names that we considered and ultimately left off, and whatever the motivating factor was for that.
I wouldn't say a full gaggle's worth of convictions about these players, just maybe a little gaggle, just one little one. Thought about Jake Haener, Tanner McKee, Aiden O'Connell, Dorian Thompson-Randall, or
Robinson. DTR.
Dorian Thompson Robbins. I can't get his name. Can you? What's
Dorian
the
Thompson Robinson.
Okay, there it is. I felt like I was saying way too many last names there.
We're done with quarterbacks, I guess.
Yep. Those are the ones I thought about, but not too much.
Okay, so let me pull up running backs.
This one was hard, man.
I didn't think so.
Really? I think
so.
there's some tough names to leave off.
Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. Again, these are alphabetical by first letter, first name.
A lot of momentum for Gibbs to be a first-round pick. Kyle.
Yeah. Kendre Miller. Roshan Johnson, Tajay Spears, Zach Charbonnet. The Gibbs, like you said, the Gibbs push is as a top 30 pick, I'd probably call him, is red hot right now.
Red hot.
So much so that I think it was Peter King was like, yeah, the Dolphins really like, Mike McDaniel really likes Jahmyr Gibbs. They might trade in the first round to get him. I'd probably just go get a different running back at a different point. But
right, I would too. Benjamin Albright said there might be more running backs and receivers drafted in the first round.
I would probably believe that.
Really? You don't think we get 3 receivers?
No.
We're not getting 3 running backs, man.
The Packers are going to take JSN. I've decided today that they moved up in front of New England and for a reason. JSN. Where else?
Zay Flowers. Zay's going. Oh, Kyle's shaking his head. Bill Barbett?
Maybe. Ask me again at the end of the show. Okay. We made our first Built Bar bet of the cycle last night on the YouTube channel that Sidney Brown goes in the top 100. Spoiler alert, we have on our list. So, avid Sidney Brown hater, Joe Marino.
Not the case. Not the case. Just don't think he's going to top 100. No, really, the running backs, I thought I had a hard time with like leaving off Izzy Abanikanda, leaving off Devin A-Chain, maybe even Tank Bigsby. I just hope we got the right 6.
You know who I don't get the love for?
Who's that?
Kendre Miller.
He's got some love right now.
Yeah, he's got a lot of
love.
Even
Matt Bowen was tweeting him up the other day.
Yeah. Like he is a good instinctual runner. But I just didn't see an athletic profile that gave you the impression that you couldn't find that kind of runner in a lot of other spots.
I tend to agree with you, but
that's where I'm at.
He's in there.
But the buzz is here.
You may have noticed that's a little bit of a change from last night.
Yeah, he was not on there. So that was a recommendation. Tajay Spears concerns the medicals.
Yeah, the only concern is the medicals.
Correct. So I think Miller and Spears are the 2 that I'm scared about to some degree. Versus Abanikanda with dynamic athletic testing, and Kenny McIntosh was once considered a top 100 player. Like, there's some guys that might sneak in there.
Kenny McIntosh, a scouting resource of which we will not name, was very high on Mr. Kenny McIntosh coming into the season.
That's correct.
Wide receiver.
Here are the names in order of first name. Here's the names that we have. Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt, both from Tennessee. And don't ask me why one of my abbreviations for Tennessee has 1 N and the other has 2 N's. That's going to bother me. Let me fix that. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ohio State. Jaden Reed, Michigan State. Jonathan Mingo, Ole Miss. Jordan Addison, USC. Josh Downs, North Carolina. Marvin Mims, Oklahoma. Tank Dell, Houston. Quentin Johnston, TCU. Tyler Scott, Cincinnati. Zay Flowers, Boston College. We have 12.
We settled on this pretty easily, right? Trey Palmer was the only real debate that we had. We settled on these 12 players without a whole lot of...
And I think we had consensus for 10 of the 12.
Yeah.
I brought Reed to the table, and you brought Mims to the table.
We got them both in.
And then, as you said, the late ad was... Did we have a late ad, or we just took
Palmer off?
Trey Palmer off.
Yep.
Right. So we originally had 13 and pulled one off. So that group felt pretty straightforward. I feel pretty good, Joe, about our potential of getting the right combination of players here. I think Tank Dell's size scares me a little bit.
Scares me a lot a bit.
Jaden Reed feels like a fringe.
Right.
But he had a really good Senior Bowl, and he had really good athletic testing. And he plays special teams.
Yes.
So all of that combined was like, that was what really was emphatic for me to put Jaden Reed on the list. Any other thoughts on wide receivers?
You just never know which.
What one guy somebody's going to fall in love with and take earlier than you expected?
Yeah. My attitude towards the receivers is I feel like we got the right 12. I just worry if we didn't get the right 14.
Right.
You know?
Right. Tight ends?
Yep.
Good tight ends? We're buzzing along here. Tight ends. We had, Draft Dudes Do Math, 7 tight ends on this list. Dalton Kincaid, Utah. Darnell Washington, Georgia. Luke Musgrave, Oregon State. Luke Schoonmaker, Michigan. Michael Mayer, Notre Dame. Sam Laporta, Iowa. Tucker Kraft, South Dakota State. Go Jacks. Is that, I don't know how they do it, but I'm a lifelong South Dakota State fan. So
right.
Go Jacks.
As we established last year, you were definitely.
Right.
Yeah. The hard thing with tight end was just historical norms here, because this is a great tight end class, but in most years, you only get like 3, 4, 5 in the top 100. And so we settled on 7. We could have went up to 9 with Brenton Strange out of Penn State and Zach Kuntz from Old Dominion as guys that we gave real consideration to. We just had too many to begin with.
I have a take.
Okay.
We're going to regret not having those guys on here.
Well, this is the time to make the change, my guy.
No, it's done. It's done. And okay. I don't have good candidates to pull off.
Right. But that's the hard part of this.
I feel some kind of way with the athletic profile that Zach Kuntz put on display as a developmental tight end. I understand he's an older player that played at Old Dominion, kind of got pinned down with good receivers and a change in scheme at Penn State and transferred out. And Brenton Strange, ironically enough, from Penn State with his run after catch ability as a big body tight end. I think those guys are going to go.
Maybe the numbers help us here, but I mean, you could look at some of these guys. I don't know, Kobe Fleener, Jelani Woods.
What a throwback name. Thank you. I loved Colby Fleener at Stanford.
Didn't the Colts take another one recently? You're like, wow, out of SMU, who is this player?
Oh,
Kyle Granson.
Was it Kyron Granson?
Kyron Granson, yeah. I hear you. And any other class, I think we would have him in. He's probably like in the very short list of first out. And we may regret it. it.
Kuntz or Strange, or both.
Or both.
All right, go to the trenches now, right?
We're going to go to the trenches, but first we're going to go to FanDuel. Folks, grand slams, no-hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. That's because right now new customers can step up to the plate and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. And look, you can bet on things like Pete Alonso, if you think he'll hit a home run tonight, or a pitcher going over on strikeouts. I'd use Max Scherzer, but he's suspended, so some other pitcher in the Major League Baseball. You can build a single-game parlay with your favorite matchup of the day, so don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball.
Hey, Joe, if you like free money, FanDuel right now, Tyree Wilson plus 430 to be the #2 overall pick in the draft.
One thing I'm not is a liar. I promise you that before we got on this podcast today to record it, I placed that bet. I promise you I really did that.
Plus 430, Tyree Wilson at 2. The payout odds there versus the likelihood of that actually happening is an outstanding value.
I took it. I had to take it.
If I wake my ass up tomorrow morning and that line hasn't moved because Locked On NFL Scouting listeners haven't pounded that line at FanDuel with the no-sweat first bet, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Get it now. 430 is really good line.
I'm already in.
You know what? You know what's really stinky too? I know we got to move, but being the Miami Dolphins and being the third best odds to win the AFC East this year right now.
Are we about to do an Aaron Rodgers conversation?
Well, yeah, congratulations. They got it done. We both got that done. I don't care that it didn't happen during the draft. We said it was going to happen. The deadline was the draft.
We have grace before the draft, right? Like,
correct. If it happens before the draft, it's almost more of a bonus that we called our shot and it was going to happen.
I agree. It's after the draft. And a lot of the basis for our opinions of them not being drafted were rooted in, hey, I think it happens, but not during the draft. So I think I'm claiming a dub there too. I agree.
We fully should. Yeah, we'll save that conversation for another day because I got some thoughts there. Oh, scrolled too far.
What positions did the Jets get better at this offseason besides quarterback? Not that that's not important.
I don't know. You think their wide receiver room's better?
No, I think Elijah Moore's a better player. I would rather have Elijah Moore than Alan Lazard.
But if Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback and there's an existing chemistry with the player,
it's probably something to be said there. But what about a new system? Is that offset by a new system? I know that Rodgers and Lazard have run it, but not everybody else. Is their D-line better? No. Linebackers? No. Corners? No. Safeties? No. Where'd they get better, Kyle? Where'd they get better besides Aaron Rodgers at quarterback? I understand that's a big one, but does that take you from 7 wins to enough to win the division?
What do you think wins the division this year? 11.5?
Well, the schedules are brutal.
11.5? Right.
The schedules are brutal. You get 12 wins, that's yours. It's yours. 11 might get it done.
Offensive tackles.
Let's get away from this conversation.
Anton Harrison, Oklahoma. Blake Freeland, BYU. Broderick Jones. These are alphabetical in order of first name for anybody that wasn't paying attention at the top of the show. Broderick Jones, Georgia. Darnell Wright, Tennessee. DeJuan Jones, Ohio State. Jalen Duncan, Maryland. Matthew Bergeron, Syracuse. Nick Saldiveri, Old Dominion. Paris Johnson Jr., Ohio State. Peter Skoronsky, Northwestern. Tyler Steen, Alabama. Wanya Morris, Oklahoma.
For those of you who were with us last night, you'll notice some changes.
It's a new name here.
Tyler Steen.
I think he's a guard.
Regardless,
not super long.
He's in here. He's in here.
I feel good about this group, especially because of what you said last night. Expectation, a lot of in kind of a draft that's suspect in a number of areas.
Yeah.
The trench guys are going to go early.
That makes me feel better about Blake Freeland, Wanya Morris, Tyler Steen. Like, those are not necessarily players I would pick in the top 100.
Two of those three are really good athletes with freakish length.
That's a good combination.
Recipe, right?
Yeah.
Freeland and Morris. That's a really good combination.
That gets drafted in the NFL.
Anything else on tackles?
I mean, looking at my bullpen, there wasn't even that many names here that's hard to not include. So what I
have in the bullpen? I don't think I have.
Hopefully I didn't just jinx it, but I feel good about this.
It'd be interesting to go back and track by position too and see like where we had a clean sweep.
Yeah.
Interior offensive line. Now, some of the names that we included, including Saldiveri and Tyler Steen, they might end up being interior guys when it's all said and done. But this list on the interior is pretty short, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
5 names that were not kind of crossover, overlay potential tackles. Cody Mauch, North Dakota State. Joe Tippmann, Wisconsin. John Michael Schmitz, Minnesota. Osiris Torrance, Florida. And Steve Avila, TCU.
Feels as chalky as quarterback did. Right? Like,
yeah, these are all pretty safe. I'm trying to think of who the first name off would be that you would have a hard time with. Mafi?
Maybe. Chandler Zavala, we gave some consideration to. We gave some Luke Weippler out of Ohio State. We gave some consideration to. We got 17 offensive linemen, which I think is a pretty good number.
That's healthy. Yeah. I don't feel bad about having that grand total. Edge group is a busy one.
Yeesh.
So give me a second while I flip that over.
This was one of the, as you're loading that up, this is one of the positions where everybody that I had coming into the conversation is in, and nobody that I didn't have is in. Like, this was super, like, as expected between the two of us.
So B.J. Ojulari, LSU. Byron Young, Tennessee. And once again, Tennessee with one N. Derek Hall, Auburn. Felix Uzoma, Kansas State. Isaiah Foskey, Notre Dame. Keon White, Georgia Tech. Lucas Van Ness, Iowa. Miles Murphy, Clemson. Nolan Smith, Georgia. Going out of order because my eyes are moving around. Nick Herbig, Wisconsin. new addition. Tuli Tuipulotu, USC. Tyree Wilson, Texas Tech. Will Anderson, Alabama. Will McDonald, Iowa State. Yaya Diaby, Louisville. Zach Harrison, Ohio State. That is a grand total of
16.
16.
Including Nick Herbig in this group if you're not considering him a linebacker. So good old chunk of this top 100 we expect to be edge rushers. And I think, like, just considering the need there in the NFL, like, some of these guys are going to go pretty high. I think you're going to see Anderson, Wilson, and Nolan Smith as top 10 picks. But I feel like there's going to be good value throughout the first 3 rounds for teams. Like, obviously you don't really want to wait on edge rushers, but you kind of can this year.
Let me ask you a question. Who goes first? Myles Murphy or Will McDonald?
Ooh, that's a great question. I could talk myself into either one.
Right. Seems predictively Will McDonald's got a lot of steam.
Yeah. One of the bets that I looked at this morning was actually how many ACC players were drafted in the first round. The over-under was set at 3.5. I took the under, Kyle.
Okay.
I think your contenders are Zay Flowers, Brian Brzee, Myles Murphy, and Trenton Simpson. Those are your contenders. Who else is in that conversation?
Tyreek Stevenson.
First round.
6'2" corner. Played lockdown press man. I'm not saying I would.
Josh Downs is maybe in the conversation.
Downs is maybe in the conversation. Did you mention Keon White?
No, I didn't. Okay. There's a few more contenders.
It just got a little interesting, huh?
I took the under. It's locked in. So.
Pitt. Is everybody at Pitt?
Kalijah
Cansey.
Yikes.
Uh-oh.
I might not win that.
Hold on to your butt, buddy.
Yeah. All right, everybody. I don't want to hope these guys don't get drafted high, but kind of do.
Just go like 32 through 35, right?
Yeah.
You can go super early that way. Interior defensive line. This is a pretty healthy group. We have Adetomiwa Adebare, Brian Brzee, Kalijah Cansey, Gervon Dexter, Jalen Carter, Keanu Benton, Mozzie Smith, Siaki Ika, Zach Pickens.
This was a position group that, I mean, we didn't struggle too much here. I mean, we took off Moro Ajomo from last night, and everything was pretty easy to get to. We had to reluctantly talk ourselves into Ika from Baylor because we definitely wouldn't pick him in that range. But if you want that big old dude to...
An athletic one. He's an athletic one, even though he's not...
Athletic?
He's athletic for 340 pounds.
I don't know. Marcel Darius was athletic for 340 pounds.
Size adjusted wise, he's an athletic. He's a penetration one. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'll tell you, if I wanted a penetration one, I'll lean into the Aleem McNeils of the world instead.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that's the sales pitch is a A-gap defender who can get some backfield penetration.
And listen, when he gets drafted to the top 100, and we're on the live stream here on this Locked On NFL Scouting YouTube channel. You got to join us. We'll be live night 1, night 2, the whole thing.
Yep.
And then after each round on night 3. We're going to celebrate that, Kyle. We're going to be happy for Mr.
That's a win-win. It's a win-win.
As long as he's not a Bill or a Dolphin. Get him, New England. Come get him, baby.
Danny Shelton.
Right. You know,
Go get your next Danny Shelton, Bill. Sitting here in the arms race of the AFC East. And what do we have to be excited about? Last 25 years.
Your text message was, I died last night when you said, can we share it?
Yeah, you
about
can share
Bill
it.
Belichick.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. We had it was you, me, and Chris Schubert in a text message. Go ahead. Read it out.
And pull it up here. So Chris was
mad. The terms and conditions.
And you know what we can always settle on is a little Patriot hate. And Kyle said, thank goodness Belichick. Thank goodness Belichick thinks you can carry over points from the last 25 years.
I mean, they asked the man why Patriots fans should be excited about the direction of the team. And he said, the last 25 years. Okay, Bill. Like, thanks.
Oh, man. This show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing. I was actually just talking with my 18-year-old niece the other day about how differently I saw things at her age compared to 25, 30, even 35 years old. Therapy is all about deepening your self-awareness and understanding, because sometimes we don't know what we want or why we react the way that we do until we talk things through. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who can take you on that journey of self-discovery from wherever you are. So if you're thinking of trying therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn.
Okay, Joseph, we are transitioning to the linebacker position. We have no specialists. Okay, so we have linebackers, corners, and safeties to finish with here. Linebacker was an interesting group. We had the following names: Diane Henley, Washington State; DeMarvion Overshone, Texas; Dorian Williams, Tulane; Drew Sanders, Arkansas; Henry To'o, Alabama; Jack Campbell, Iowa; Marte Mapu, Sacramento State; and Trenton Simpson, Clemson.
This was a position group that last night when we finished the experiment, we knew we had to beef it up a little bit. We had looked through the historical norms. We saw that most year we're getting 10-ish, mostly more than 10, and we closed out our discussion last night with like 7.
Yeah.
And we were able to add to it. Again, Nick Herbig, I think you can make a case is classified in this bucket.
Linebacker. And
so I feel good, or I feel better about beefing it up. I don't necessarily love all these players, but they're going to go, right? History
Herbig
tells
and
us they're going to go.
To'o were the 2 additions that we had.
Yeah. Yep.
So we went from 7 to 9, if you're including Herbig. I have him as an edge. Rush the passer abilities there, but semantics, right? He's a hybrid linebacker type. So
yep.
That leaves us with a lot of room for corners, and it's a good thing because it's a good corner class. So
and they get drafted.
Here's the names. Alphabetical order, first name: Cam Smith, South Carolina; Cameron Mitchell, Northwestern, early entrant into the class; Christian Gonzalez, Oregon; Clark Phillips, Utah; Darius Rush, South Carolina; Deontay Banks, Maryland; Devin Witherspoon, Illinois; DJ Turner, Michigan; Emmanuel Forbes, Mississippi State; Jacorian Bennett, Maryland; Joey Porter Jr., Penn State. Lost my spot. Julius Brents, Kansas State; Keely Ringo, Georgia; Caillou Blue Kelly, Stanford; Riley Moss, Iowa; Tyreek Stevenson, University of Miami.
Big old group, 16 names here. We actually took one off. We took off Corey Trice. We're on the fence with him. Wanted to beef up some other positions. We already had a bunch of corners.
I think that's the right name to take off, too. I think the only other player that I would have argued for was potentially Jacorian Bennett if you felt like the glass ceiling as a nickel only was too high.
And we, in terms of the bullpen, Garrett Williams we gave some consideration to as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like just the volume here makes me a little bit nervous about landing on the right names, but I feel pretty good about it.
What's apparent is the talent's available, right? So knowing that the talent to have this number, if you get squeezed on other positions because of the amount of depth, okay, I'll live with that. But I don't look at the list of the final 100 that we ultimately settled on and feel like we left anybody off that was egregious at corner.
You know who's become really underrated, in my opinion, is Cam Smith. I don't know what this guy has done wrong. He's a good player.
I watched him. I just don't think he's as dynamic or athletic as some of the other guys. He's a good instinctual player.
I like that. Hips and feet.
Sure. Hips
Tackles.
and feet.
Plays the ball.
Safeties. We only had 4. We had to fight for 4. Well, I had to fight for 4.
We took one off, too.
We did take one off. Antonio Johnson, Texas A&M. Brian Branch, Alabama. And the Illinois combo of Jartavius, Quan Martin, and Sidney Brown. Only safeties on the list.
You know who the guy I think might be the hardest to leave off, and you probably will think I'm crazy, but it's Jair Brown.
You're right. I do think you're crazy.
That's fine. I can live with that.
I get it. He's been buzzy, but he's small. He tested terribly. I'm not there. I'm just not there.
I get it. I didn't fight hard for it, but that's the guy that overnight I'm like, man, I wonder if that was a mistake.
Jair Brown.
You'll sleep well, won't you?
I will die on that hill just fine if that's the case. So let me, as we finish up here, I'm going to select all the position groups, and we'll give it one last scroll.
So if you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see it.
If you're on YouTube,
visually.
you can see, and I'm going to also expand it out across, and I'm going to let it divide the whole screen between you and I.
So as people are perusing this, Kyle, I want to bring it back up. Zay Flowers, first-round pick. I say yes. I'm willing to put a box of Built Bars out there.
Sure.
Whoa, you took it!
I'm taking it because I feel like I've got a box of Built Bars in the bag with the Sidney Brown bet.
You could be getting two.
I could be getting two. But
So
worst case scenario, I'm not getting any.
I feel really good about Zay Flowers.
I think my worst case scenario is a push.
Okay.
So in my world, I'm either getting two or I'm getting none. And I'm okay with that. But I'm not giving any. There's your full 100. I just scrolled through it.
Because you think we both potentially have a lock.
Yes.
But I feel like my lock's better than your lock.
Okay. I know how good the tape was, and I know how bad this safety class is, and I know how good the athletic testing was for Sidney Brown, so
all right.
We'll find out. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dude. Special shout out to our everydayers who are plugged in, those of you who tuned in last night and then checked out the show this morning. We hope you enjoyed the finalized list. For those of you who missed it, you can always go back and watch. It's an hour of Joe and I BS and talk about prospects back and forth, and might be fun to know what the final product looks like and then go back and see the process of how we got there as well. As a reminder, we're going to be live on Thursday night, Friday night, and intermittently throughout the day on Saturday here on the YouTube channel, Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube. So come hit subscribe on the channel. Come hang out with us during the draft. We've got mock drafts, final predictive mock drafts the next 2 days as well. So plan accordingly. Keep it locked in right here on Locked On NFL Scouting. It's your teams every day. Appreciate you guys checking out the show, and talk to you all again soon. Peace.